Hi, you're listening to Scribble Talk Teaching, a podcast for bid and proposal professionals. My name is Bhaskar Sundram, and I'll be sitting down with our industry veterans to dive deep into the topics that business winning professionals like you can use to help grow your skills and your business. Today's guest is Kathryn Bennett. Kathryn is a proposal management expert and Lean Six Sigma green belt with more than 12 years of sales and communications experience. If you're a listener to Scribble Talk, you know that we interviewed Kathryn that will be available in episode number 129. Today, we are going to talk all about the trends for the RFP team. Welcome, Kathryn, to Scribble Talk Teaching.
Hi, it's really wonderful to be here, and I'm so excited to talk about the state of the industry for 2022.
Perfect, Kathryn. Kathryn, why can't you give us an overview of the findings first?
What I think the key takeaways, the really big, heavy-hitting topics are this year is that we are optimistic. We're seeing a lot more investment in our teams. We're seeing a lot more of a drive towards training. And ultimately, I think that this is a really bright and encouraging time to be a proposal professional. And it's been hard to say that over the past couple of years. So things are looking up.
Totally, Kathryn. And as you know, the report covers prominently survey from the US market. Is that right, Kathryn?
Primarily US, but there were also some participants from Australia, Canada. It's primarily North American focused, so yes.
Got it. Why can't we just go and talk about trends, each of those trends so that I could ask some questions? Yeah.
Sure. So the biggest, and I think one of the most impactful results that we've seen come out, what we can expect for 2022 is more investment in proposal teams. So back in 2020, I don't know about you, but I saw a lot of my friends get laid off. I was on a team of 4 people. 3 of them left and were never rehired back in 2020, of course, because of the economic conditions, the pandemic, right? All of these contributing factors. And now we're starting to see a resurgence and maybe not even just bringing those RFP teams back to whole, but also bringing them into a higher level of staffing than they had been before, which I think is a really important key finding. So we're seeing massive investment in proposal teams specifically. Also, I think it's important to note that we are seeing a growth in proposal centers, not just in salespeople who do proposals. That's an extremely important distinction. So more proposals are expected to go out this year, and more proposal teams will be driving those efforts. So that specialized focus is really important for businesses this year.
That's very interesting, Kathryn, to just see that there is a lot more investments on the proposal team and the teams are growing larger. So from your experience, from this survey, is this related to federal side, or is it commercial side, or is it a nice blend of both?
So I would say that this is probably a blend of both. The survey actually assessed organizations that provide mostly services in the software and information technology spaces, but we did have a fair number of contributors from the healthcare, from the defense, from the government and nonprofit sectors. And so I think that this year that survey is so much more well-rounded that I feel confident expanding the results not only to small commercial businesses, but also to larger enterprise organizations. So I think it's really important to note that these trends are probably relevant for the whole of the industry.
Yeah. Got it. Do you find, as you know, people who invested on proposal automation tools tend to go for a lot more opportunities compared to providers who don't invest themselves in the proposal automation tools? Do you find the volume of opportunities of the entities that you kind of surveyed increased over this past few years?
Yes, we're seeing a linear trend upward for anybody who's using software. And the interesting thing is that we've seen that software users tend to have an overall pretty similar win rate to non-software users, but the fact is that they can pump out about 30% more proposals in a year. And we hate to quantify or kind of characterize our activities as being a factory, but if you have the same win rate and you have more proposals that have gone out, that's more money in your pocket, with less expense. So so that's kind of a trend that we're seeing, but also along with that increased volume of proposals, software users tend to be far more satisfied with their experience. And so that qualitative aspect is really important. So you're doing more work, but you're doing it better and in a way that is more gratifying to you as a professional. And that's something that we just see continuing to hold as a data point in the industry.
That's an interesting point, Kathryn. One is, you're right. So the win rate might have stayed the same, but using software, you can pump out a lot more. So I would have thought that, oh my God, you are a lot more stressed because you are doing a lot more than what your counterpart on the other side, who doesn't have a software, does, because obviously he or she does less compared to you who has a software. But the interesting find is, even though you do a lot more than your counterpart on the other side, you are satisfied.
Yes, there's a measurable increase in job satisfaction for folks who are using proposal software, and satisfaction with the process really is what is tied to win rates, to be honest with you, because the more satisfied your internal customers are, your subject matter experts, your salespeople, your executives, the more satisfied even the proposal team is with the effort, the more likely they are to put their best foot forward and to be engaged in their work. And software does help to facilitate that. So it's the analogy that I use a lot is are you using a hammer or are you using a nail gun, right? You can build a lot more houses better and faster with the nail gun than trying to make the hammer your primary tool. So both will get the job done, but it's just not as much fun.
Interesting, Kathryn, interesting. And the way I see here is, the important point here is, why we do what we do is we would like to see the proposal professionals to be valued more in their organization compared to how they were before. It looks like the trend is improving, and you're finding more and more proposal professionals being valued and satisfied in their profession. Is that right?
Yes. And statistics bear out, and you'll see this in this report as well. The statistics reflect that having a proposal leader at the helm of your efforts, so having someone who specializes in this work, leading your processes, leads to higher win rates, ultimately more revenue for your organization. So folks who are using salespeople to just kind of do this off the side of their desk tend to struggle to get the money in the door. But hiring a specialized bid professional, even if it's just one person to be that central control point, can transform your bidding process as an organization and drive more revenue. So if it's time for you to make that decision, I strongly encourage hiring a specialist.
Got it, Kathryn. And also, do you find, you did talk about that there is a gradual shift from being a proposal team into a proposal center. What constitutes a proposal center? Is it like 11 members in different places, ad hoc constitute a proposal center, or it's much more structured than that?
No, really, all you need to do in order to start seeing that win rate increase, and this is a very good question, so thank you for asking it. All you really need to do is have a proposal professional who has centralized control of the process. We see that the decentralized model is useful for those who are just starting to get into writing and responding to bids. But as you become more sophisticated, even having a single person who's a point of control for your major opportunities will improve your likelihood of a win. And that's definitely borne out by this year's statistics. Interestingly, also this year, we have found that proposal teams are actually spending less time writing proposals than ever before in the surveys that we've conducted, which has been an extraordinarily gratifying trend for me to see, because win rates are staying the same and proposal teams aren't having to work as hard. So 10 out of 10 on that.
Wow. Did you find, considering 2020, I think there was this ifs about working from home, whereas 2021 predominantly it was working from home. Did the statistics find any interesting dynamics about work from home and proposals on 2021?
Oh, great question. Collaboration for the first time ever has risen to be a top concern for proposal management teams. In the past, we saw a lot more difficulty along the lines of putting your hands on information in the library. Like, right, how do I go find old information? Now teams, whether they use software or not, are kind of figuring out how to manage that more effectively. But top of mind for us is collaboration with subject matter experts, because I can no longer just walk down the hall and see what my colleagues doing and ask them for the support or hold them accountable. So having electronic tools to facilitate collaboration, again, regardless of which one it is that you select, it becomes top of mind, because we have to make sure that we're organized. We have to make sure that we're communicating effectively. That can really look different for a lot of different organizations, but collaboration with subject matter experts is the biggest challenge in the proposal management industry today. And I am really not surprised.
Wow. Wow. I think, yes, from these findings, I mean, like, in the past, like 2019-ish, when we say what we call a bid room or a bid factory, anything, it's like one place, structured, everybody stays there, they do all the storyboarding, walls mapped out, sit here, talk about how are we going to bid. That's the only focus for the team for a few months, few days. And that completely got, disrupted by the new way of COVID, where people still need to solutionize, people still need to strategize from wherever they are. And there were a multitude of tools, and one of the tools, many of the tools that industry followed kind of tried to help them to go. But it's interesting that still the industry is finding its own way of how to be best in this collaborative world, I would say. Is that right?
Yes, yes. And it's also interesting, like when we talk about the idea of a storyboard, or we talk about a bid room, thinking about the magnitude of the bids that most folks are submitting. I know that in AP&P and a lot of different organizations, we live in this kind of major pursuits environment. But the fact is that a lot of people within our industry are submitting these smaller, faster turnaround time bids. And in fact, we're seeing a trend towards even shorter deadlines for those more common bids than we've ever seen before. So customers are asking for, 2 or 3 day turnarounds for their security questionnaires, for their technology information. And it's putting a lot of strain on proposal teams from that perspective. So even the concept of having the luxury to storyboard a proposal may soon become a thing of the past because of these turnaround times.
That's shocking, isn't it? I mean, like, since we part of the Scribble, we also train people for AP&P certifications there. If you read it, I think pursuits can go up to 2 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and compared to here, you are saying it's 2 days. So the whole way of working needs to be pretty much in drugs.
Well, and a lot of it's really dependent on industry, though. So it's difficult to say. For certain industries, those longer term RFPs can definitely still be relevant. But I would say that if I'm thinking about how to manage my proposal team moving forward this year, I'm really focusing on the business relationships at the front end of that proposal and figuring out how to respond rapidly as soon as the document is released, because the customers want the information now, and they want it to be accurate, and they want it to be precise, but they want it faster than ever. So what are you doing up front to prepare your proposal teams with the right information from sales orgs, which again walks back to our collaboration point.
That's nice, Kathryn. So what I'm learning here is you should be absolutely clear in what sector, what service, what product you are selling to your target market, because you don't have time to think, are we qualifying this? This is the right. You should be absolutely clear. These are the tenders that's going to come out. We don't know when, but when it's coming out, it's going to be 2-3 days turnaround. And we should absolutely have our standard pricing, standard proposal content ready so that we can do it. We can quickly turn it around in the best possible way. Is that right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a great way to summarize it, and it lines up also with the fact that we're seeing a lot more contribution to RFPs from sales team members and executive team members. So while proposal writers the contributions have actually decreased over the last 2 years. We've seen increased involvement from executive teams and from sales teams. And I would venture to say that some of that has to do with, with ramping up with those standard procedures like what you're describing, making sure standard pricing is ready to rock and roll, but also executives are understanding that these are really high stakes documents and that they do need to be vetted thoroughly, and that having leadership involvement is important. And I would tend to agree with that. I think it's really wonderful to see more engagement from the executive teams, and proposal managers now have to figure out how to make that happen too, which is why I suspect that collaboration is so significantly top of mind. But we did see sales teams increasing their contribution to every proposal by about 2 hours of writing, and executive teams increasing by about 3 to 4% of their contributions as well. So more fingers or more chefs in the kitchen, should I say, probably in 2022.
That's interesting. I mean, like, there are so many moving parts I'm seeing here. And one is like a very fast moving proposal world now. Whereas in the utopian world that we all been taught is like, you need to do capture analysis. You need to know your hot buttons. You need to know the key issues. Then you need to do a bit of comparison matrix day to day. And then when the tender comes up with the kickoff meeting, you do. But here, looks like it's like we are sprinting. It's not, before we were doing marathons, but now it looks like it's a 100-meter sprint.
Yes.
So everything needs to be fast paced. The way we qualify the bids, the way we summarize the bids, the way we submit the bids, the way we do sign off for the bids. Did you find any interesting, as you rightly said, that there is a lot more involvement with people, and also the number of bids is also increasing. Did you find the quality of the proposals also been increasing? Because it doesn't matter, right? If you are the only player or the major player in an industry, you could still have a good win rate. Is there any way that in this fast world that the quality is also somehow managed effectively? Or do you find the quality is like, it's okay, because we are still going with the fast-paced environment? Was there any interesting thing that you find that, yes, there is a lot more bids that we did over the months. Yes, there is a lot more success that we got. But did you find any quality inputs on the quality of the proposals also improved?
Yes. Well, I think really what it comes down to is quality isn't decreasing. It's either staying about the same or it's improving slightly. I think that overall within this report, you'll find that participants will support what you're describing, is that we're really trending towards the use of more tools and technology, and the use of novel tools and technology. So instead of doing competitive analysis up front, we have power to do really meaningful debriefs and gathering our market intelligence through organizations like Clue or Closed. Those are just a couple that I can think of off the top of my head. But market intelligence in a global sense, from like a technological perspective, is becoming more important. So we don't have the time to get out there and do that competitive analysis on the front end. So who can we pay to do that for us? And those are the people who are going to win more work.
Got it. I think we have been talking about real-time competitive intelligence for over a year now. Mm-hmm. How, the whole capture as a field might need to move into automated world compared to a single person. I think in the past, yes, 25 years experience, 30 years experience comes on board, talks about this is the technology that was procured and other things. But today, there is so much information that's scattered across social media, websites, and anything and everything in different formats, articles, blogs, everything. You need to carve those information, pull the right sort of intelligence, have it part of a thing in a click of a button. And when you have the customer, somebody or some bot tells you, here we go. This is what you need to know about the customer. And then go and bid it. So yeah, that's fascinating. I think we are testing that with few clients here in UK, and the results are unbelievable. I mean, because that competitive intelligence is not in the US. In UK, it mostly sits with marketing, because marketing is the one who does it. Mostly we are bucketed as marketing analytics, but it's very, very interesting what you just said now, because once you kind of frame out the proposals, then all the thought leaderships, reports that we are sharing, all the posts that we are sharing, is it being read by the prospects that we want to target? Or is it being just send it to the ether and it's like, here we go, read it, whoever, but we'll still continue to bid whoever we want to bid. That's great. So
one of the best relationships you can build as a proposal team is with your product marketers. I mean, that's not even just a 2022 trend, that's an overall trend. If you can build a strong relationship with your product marketers and your RevOps team, you are going to be far more impactful, far more thoughtful with what you respond to, and just a much higher quality of proposal that you're going to bring forth. So again, not just a 2022 trend, something I would advocate any year.
Well said, Kathryn. So what we are seeing here is the number of proposals are increasing, but we are also seeing quality, some are the same, and the win rate is more or less the same. But what we're also finding is the satisfaction of the profession or the people whom we surveyed is improving. So all positive so far. So what we are also finding here is there any other ways that not all the companies find review through RFPs, right? Are we finding the trend shifting more and more people procuring services through RFPs?
You know, it's really difficult to say on that. I think it is heavily dependent on the industry. RFPs aren't going anywhere when it comes to government, right, or legally binding procurement opportunities. There are certain domains in which we will always have some form of an RFP or some form of a formal procurement process to maintain our ethical standards. And what I am seeing is a trend in certain industries towards more of these bid portals, towards limiting the size of the response. So I don't think it's that RFPs are going away. It's that they're implementing word limits. They're implementing things like, faster turnaround times to try to keep it more concise. So I don't know. I don't think RFPs are going away, but I do think that they're being asked for faster, and there are more restrictions on the documents that we're sending.
Got it, Kathryn. And as the organization matures itself, as you rightly said, they are moving into what we call decentralized, into some part being centralized, some part being decentralized, or a best of both hybrid. Are you finding more? And you also mentioned that there are more investments going to the proposal teams. Is it moving on the people side, or is it moving more on the process and the tool side? Where is this investment going in?
Yes, great question. What we're seeing the heaviest investment on, and I think this is really important. So let me also just state, in light of the Great Resignation, I think it's really important that we figure out where our money is going in our proposal teams, because I've seen large enterprise organizations lose 30 to 40% of their proposal teams this year, and they're scrambling to try to figure out what to do, right? So what we're seeing the investment go towards is three top domains really. Number one is on training for their professional teams. So they're trying to make sure that they're professional, the proposal professionals, their sales teams, their marketing people have a stronger grasp on what RFPs are, what they look like, and how to respond to them. So there's the majority of the split when it comes to investing, but the training side really does take the cake in that domain. So it's very important that you allocate training dollars to your proposal people, so that number one, they'll be more effective, but number two, they'll stick around.
That's good to hear, Kathryn.
It's probably, yeah, from your perspective, it's really good to hear.
Exactly. Trading, and you know who we are. Thank you for the pitch, Kathryn. Love it.
I got you.
And as you rightly said, when people are investing on training and followed by the other elements as well. So the average team size, is it also increasing? And what was in the past to what it is today among the different types of companies that you surveyed?
I would have to go back and look at the report to see what the exact team size looks like.
That's fine. I mean, like, I'm sure that if the volume is increased, then definitely the number of people will also be increasing. Let's just take that there. And also, as you move more and more, you did mention that collaboration is one of the key challenge. Was there any other challenges that came out part of the survey?
Other key challenges, other key challenges are collaboration was the top concern this year. However, we're also seeing the more traditional, how do I find information? How do I submit information quickly? And really what it came down to is that one of the bigger frustrations is how do I get the right information from my subject matter early on in the process by training them about basics in RFP response and management, and by making sure your deadlines are clear so you're not asking them for things at the last minute. So those are the ways in which I would address that particular challenge.
Got it, Kathryn. And one of the challenges that we have, part of the thing, as which you always stand for, is the gender equality.
Oh, yes. It's a spicy one. We got a lot of really, okay, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off from your question, but this is a spicy topic, so.
Yeah, please do share what else did we found, because I know we talked about the proposal volume is increasing, people are investing on people, and those are generic high level. Now let's just get into the hard crux information. And are we finding any improvement in the way the gender balance is doing? Are we finding improvement in the way that people are valued, which you already said it is? Yeah. And let's just go more diversity and the other parts of the surveys.
Yeah, it's important to note that for a long time we've all known that this is an industry that's primarily staffed by women and primarily led by men. So we have an 80% of people in the field are female, 20% of the leaders are female. So it's an 80-20 split towards men in the leadership and 80-20 split towards women in the trenches. So it's important to note that. We did find, no surprise, that salary for women in this field, even at the same level of the same organizational level, the same role, we did find that more women tend to fall in the mid to low pay grades as opposed to the men who operate in this space. And it's really important that we have transparency around that, because we haven't seen a salary survey in a really long time from any industry leading organization, aside from SMPS, and they have such a limited reach in architecture, engineering, and construction that I don't think we can generalize their data. So we did find that the average proposal manager in this survey within these industries tends to make about $87,000. Again, that's the average, not the mean. Or sorry, that's the average, not the median. I don't know what the median dollar value would look like for that. And we did, again, find that a lot more women tend to fall below that line than men. And I'm sure there's lots of different data criticisms that we could make of that, but it just kind of reflects the general state of the industry.
That's interesting, isn't it, Kathryn? Because if 80% of the doers are females, but 80% of leaders are male, where does these male people come from?
Because we don't have proposal people leading proposal teams. We have salespeople leading proposal teams.
Got it. That's interesting. So primarily the proposal team is part of the overall sales or commercial team, and that function is led by predominantly male, and then the proposal team gets bucketed under it. That's interesting.
Well, it could be sales, it could be marketing, it could be revenue and growth. Like, there's so many places that a proposal team can live, but very few of the leaders in those full departments are women.
Got it. And also, if you go deeper on the data, then you might find that the average age will be somewhere between mid-30s or something, right? It's like...
well, yeah, I mean, people leave this industry because people leave the industry for a lot of reasons, right? Yeah. I don't know that many tenured proposal professionals. You know, I'm getting up there as one of the ones who's been doing this for a pretty long time. And I see such rapid attrition in the industry. And if this is the type of thing that's happening, then we've really got to make an effort to keep these specialists. Again, because if you allow your bid efforts to be led by people who aren't specialists, you're leaving money on the table and you're losing a lot of work. So how do we keep these very specialized, very knowledgeable, very educated women engaged in the workplace? And a lot of it has to do with salary. You hate to be that way, but if you can't afford a proposal professional, figure out a way to afford them. Don't underpay someone.
Well said, Kathryn. And also, as you rightly said, as people evolve from being a proposal professional into sales leadership or much wider leadership, that comes with its own talent gaps or skills gap. And that's also important for the proposal professionals to also understand. What you know is great, but you also need to build up even more to stand up to your board and qualify why this is the right bid, to stand up to the buyer and say why they need to buy your service, etc. If that's what high-paid job is, why can't we do that? Again, when we do bid leadership programs, Kathryn, this was the fascinating find from our sides. Like, out of 100 proposal professionals we put to the program, only 14 will go into what we call the elite leadership, which is like a divisional leadership. Mm-hmm. Out of which only 0.1 will actually go into become like a managing director level or a kind of a senior leadership level. Wow. So yeah, so the number of people are minuscule. So for example, out of 100, only 0.1 will actually get into some sort of big budget, senior vice president type of a level. And
so what do those people do differently? The ones who rise up in the organization?
I think, as you rightly said, they not only do bids, on the same sector. They then try to take a different service. Then they try to go to the, as they call it, the BD ecosystem, both to the left and to the right. Mm-hmm. And not just to do the proposal, but then they take a role of about how am I going to go and mobilize this contract? How am I going to even run this contract, which I wrote for a year? Now I will lead the renewal of this contract. So I come back to the sales part. So they try to position themselves pretty much on the end-to-end cycle that gives them a whole of, okay, legally, how does this contract get converted into how does this bid gets converted into a contract? What are the commercial risks? Now, how does the KPIs within the stuff is managed as an operational? So that's what we find fascinating. So, if you have done 10 bids or if you have done 20 bids, there was a time when you can say, I have done 100 bids and won, all 100 bids and got 50 billion. If today you say that, it actually devalues your professional value. because okay, you have done 100 bids, but you're still doing the same. People need to, evaluate bid by bid. What am I learning? What am I applying? And is it going to take me to the next level? And find that space to take them to the next level. That's what we find people, because the most fascinating story that we have, a receptionist in a company, within 10 years, she became the group HR director of a $1 billion company.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
100%. And she even got one of the top 100 HR awards recently, 10 years. She spent 3 years in the proposal field. Mm-hmm. So the challenge is, okay, I'm starting in reception, I'm saying hello, building social skills. Then I'm trying, okay, I'm freeing now. I'm just printing some documents. What are these documents that I'm printing? I was curious. I'm learning, hey, in my free time, can I help write the proposals? Okay, I'm writing. Hey, I'm moving into proposals. Now I've done the proposals. Because of my social skills, I'm elevating myself to the sales roles, account roles, bing, 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 Mm-hmm. So, that's what I always tell people, what your average salary, that benchmarking surveys, with all due respect, I am not a big fan of any of those benchmarking surveys. Who are you to benchmark who I am, right?
Fair.
I have my own value. So, and that's the thing which I always insist on people, it's important for the gender neutrality or anything. Find your own path, sell yourself first. That was my talk on New Orleans conference in 2016. We're very good in writing about others. How good are we in writing about ourselves? Right?
Oh, I love it. And as proposal professionals, so I've actually got an upcoming seminar in April for the South Florida chapter of, I think, APMP. You'll forgive me, I don't remember exactly who I'm doing it with, but I'm doing how to use social media to further your brand and do that within the proposal space. Because you're right, like I've been doing technical communications for a really long time, but that looks different, right? Like I taught high school science for a period of time, or I was, which helps again build the social and team building and assessment, or I did data analytics, or I did X, Y, or Z. I'm so glad that you're putting that out there in the world.
Exactly, Kathryn. I mean, like surveys are surveys, but as you rightly said, but we should all be beyond surveys to set our own standards and be different than others. But that's great. I mean, it's great to find some important metrics around diversity, inclusion, and people are progressing more and more on this. And also using the software and helps people to churn even more proposals. It reduces stress levels, which is great. Collaboration still, as you rightly said, is a challenge. It's not easy with all this Microsoft Team calls or Zoom calls. It's not the same as sitting next to each other talking. That will continue to be the challenge. So teams are getting larger, as you rightly said. And also, what we are also finding here is, the number of RFPs is also being increased. So finally, what next steps would you advise any company in this, based on this RFP trends? What do you think that the companies needs to do in 2022? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, so I'll talk about companies and I'll talk about people. Yeah. So companies specifically, please focus on bringing in three things. Number one, you need a center of control for your proposals. If they constitute a third of your revenue or more, you need somebody to actually manage those. You can't have people doing it off the side of their desk. So bring in a specialist, invest in technology, invest in training for your people. Those are the three top recommendations I can make this year. And the number one biggest recommendation I can make this year for staff members, we just really talked a lot about it, is educate yourself outside of the proposal domain. Of course, spend a lot of time honing your craft, but if you're going to get ahead, you've got to become an expert in more than just proposals. And I think it's an extremely strong use of your time to invest in other disciplines as well.
Well said, Kathryn. That's an amazing point there. As you can see, this is the time the top teams are doing things differently. This is the time individuals within their top teams are doing things differently. So the question is, what are you going to do things differently in your own organization and within yourself? So that's a good note, Kathryn. Thank you so much for sharing your pointers, RFP trends. I think the report is available in the Loopio website, but beyond Loopio, always good to have Kathryn talk about a lot more stuff about Kathryn. Thank you, Kathryn. Anything that we missed out with that you would like to cover in the last minute or two?
No, just that 2022 is going to be a great year for us. I know a lot of us are tired. I know a lot of us are fatigued, and there is hope based on this survey. So I am encouraged. I hope you're encouraged. And I think that this is going to be an exceptional year in sales and proposal development.
100%, Kathryn. Yeah, totally. Wish you, your family, your loved ones, all the good health and success, Kathryn. And we wish the same to all the listeners as well. Trends are trends, but you be the trendsetters rather than to follow the trend. Next year, when the trends comes out, let's see even more impactful insights. But thank you, Kathryn. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please visit batchyscribble.com/podcast to listen to this episode and check out any of our other previously recorded episodes. If you've enjoyed today's interview, don't forget to subscribe, review, and share the Scribble Talk podcast. We hope you'll check out our next episode where we interview another industry expert and special guest. Until then, it's Ashley Kays,
Bhaskar Sundram,
signing off.